Okay, again, thank you everyone and welcome. We're very excited about tonight's program featuring the NEADS service dogs and the way we'll be learning about the ways that service dogs impact the lives of people with disabilities. So our speakers tonight are Katy Ostroff and Katy Hanna. And thank you once again for joining us. I am going to be turning the program over right now to Beth Bostic, who is a board member for the Federation, who will be facilitating tonight. So again, I want to remind you, if you're not speaking, to please put yourselves on mute. And we will have an opportunity for you to unmute at the end and ask questions. So Beth, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Pam, and welcome everybody. This is indeed a very different and exciting opportunity to talk about something that many people have had questions about around service animals and in particular service dogs. And we have two very special people here with us. Both go by the name of Katy. So we have Katy Hanna, who is an Army veteran, recently retired from the U.S. Army Reserves after 23 years of total service, including 11 years of active duty. She completed her Army career as a lieutenant colonel and operations officer with the U.S. Army Surgeon General Reserve Affairs Directorate. Prior to coming to NEADS, Katy was the area census office manager for the Worcester office, managing over 1,500 field staff, supervisors, and managers responsible for completing the 2020 census. Katy has a Bachelor of Science in Psychology and a Master of Arts in Management and Leadership. She is the point person for veteran clients, provides outreach for the veteran community, and services to civilian clients. Her passion is supporting veterans in living their lives to the fullest in response to service to our country. She is active in the community and serves as the president of the University of Iowa ROTC Alumni Association, providing support to Army ROTC candidates and alumni. So welcome, Katy, and thank you for your service. The other Katy, Katy Ostroff, is a licensed clinical social worker and the manager of client services for NEADS world-class service dogs. She is responsible for matching eligible clients to their service dogs through a highly specialized intake and evaluation process. In addition, Katy speaks locally and nationally about the life-changing possibilities of service dogs, focusing on partnerships between NEADS clients and their service dogs. Her prior experience includes Executive Director of Employment Connection Specialists, a nonprofit agency that placed persons with disabilities in jobs in private industry. Volunteer experience includes serving as a board member and a board president for the New Hampshire Rehabilitation Association, as well as leadership positions on a variety of professional and community boards. So welcome, Katy. So
Thank you.
Before you guys get started, I just want to remind people, if you're not speaking, please turn off your microphone. And also, if you could remain muted until the Q&A session, there will be an opportunity for you to be able to ask questions of our guests. And as always, if we're not able to get to your question, we will make sure that we note it and get back to you when we post the live recording and answers to questions later on. So please know that that opportunity does exist. And if you're just joining us, if you could also turn off your video because we are recording the session, and that way, if you happen to be having a bad hair day, it won't show up on the screen. So without further ado, Katy and Katy, take it away.
Great. I will share my screen and it worked when we were testing. We'll see if it happens now. Oh, good. Okay. So Katy Hanna will start us off, and we'll turn it over to Katy now.
Thanks everyone for joining us. And we're excited to tell you about the wonderful dogs and the tasks that they can do for the clients that we serve. And the next slide, Katy. So a little bit about NEADS. We have a lot of longevity. We've been around since 1976. We are the oldest program in the Northeast, but we also have the most programs in the country serving.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
you were very broken up on my side. I don't know if that was true for Beth and company. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm hearing her just fine. I'm not having
Okay.
any.
Okay, good. So as I was saying, you know, we have a great network and understanding of what we can do out here in the Northeast, but we do serve nationwide and we have clients all over the country. Our dogs are wonderful, but they take a lot to train them, to raise them. The average cost to raise a service dog is about $45,000. What we ask from our clients is that they fundraise on behalf of NEADS for about $8,000. Our veterans do receive their dog at no cost, and that's because we have a federal grant to serve veterans. Our previous client match number was about 50 per year. We are down from that considerably. We'll talk a little bit about the COVID impacts on our organization. Next slide. So what are service dogs? Well, under the American Disabilities Act, they define service animals based on the task work that they can perform. The dog is trained on about 50 to 60 tasks that they serve the person that they're matched with. And the task must be related to the person's disability. And of course, all of our dogs are trained in basic obedience with the ability to give the client and the dog with them as a matched team public access. That's one of our most important goals. The tasks that the dog performs are related to the person's disability. Of note, when the dogs are in public, they should be behaving appropriately. They should be under the command of the handler that they're matched with, the person that they're matched with. And all of these things go together to combined in their public access. What programs do we have? Well, we serve children and adults alike, as well as civilians and veterans in both of those categories, the adult category. We have service dogs for hearing. Our service dogs for veterans, we have 3 programs, a service dog program for hearing, clients that are hearing impaired, as well as service dogs for physical disabilities. And then our much smaller local program, our trauma assistance dogs, which serve our veterans that have post-traumatic stress. We have a program for adults and children that are experiencing any kind of physical disability, as well as our assistance dog program. We're going to go into more details on what that entails. And we have a social dog program for children that have autism or developmental disabilities. One thing to note here is that our programs are closed to new applicants with the exception of returning clients that are coming for a successor dog or our veterans, because we do have our grant to serve veterans. We'll talk a little bit about the impacts of that. When we get clients that give us inquiries or want to apply for a dog and we're not able to serve them currently, we do refer them to another service dog organization that is open to applicants, where we were all kind of impacted by COVID in various ways, but there are some bigger organizations that are still have open applications. So COVID-19, we all know that we were impacted by this in many ways. The service dog industry was no exception. We're kind of experiencing probably the brunt of the impact now, 2 years later, because our dogs are kind of on a 2-year cycle. They're typically trained for about 2 years and matched at the 2-year mark. So right now is kind of the height of the impact and the biggest impact from that. We purpose breed here on campus, both yellow and black labs, Labrador retrievers. The pandemic disrupted the industry across the board, but specifically for smaller programs like ours, we used to receive service dogs from other organizations. For example, Guiding Eyes for the Blind. They train guide dogs and need a specific type of dog for their program. Dogs that weren't right for their program, they would send to us, and that helps supplement our small and up and coming breeding program. All of that stopped during COVID. So we consequently had to rely on only the dogs that we can purpose breed here ourselves. We are growing that program. We're definitely in a rebuilding phase, but it takes time, and the impact has been tremendous on our organization. And that's why we chose in February of 2020 to close new applications. Of course, during that time, we already had accepted clients that we had interviewed and brought through our process and decided that we could serve and accepted them into our program. So in good faith to them, we have closed to new applicants so that we can serve them when the right dog comes along and match them as soon as we possibly can. So today we really want to tell you about NEADS and let you know and educate you on what the benefits of a service dog could be and who they might benefit. So the first program, Service Dogs for Persons with Physical Disabilities. This program has incredible impact on the life of the person that they're matched with. These dogs can do incredible things. They can do retrieval, pick up articles off the floor. They can get an article that the person might need, say, something that's across the room, something that's fallen on the floor. They're trained to use a tug rope on the refrigerator. They can open the refrigerator door and close it so that it doesn't stay open. They can get maybe a water bottle or some medication out of the refrigerator that the person might need. One of the neatest things I think they can do is go retrieve a cell phone for the person, not only because the person might need the cell phone in a practical way, but they might have a safety issue. They might be injured. They might have fallen, can't reach their cell phone. So we sent their cell phone with vanilla extract, and the dog can go around the room and by scent, pick up the scent of the cell phone, pick up the item and bring it to the person so that they could make a phone call for help or assistance if they needed that. They can push light switches off and on. They can push elevator buttons or buttons, handicapped accessible buttons to open doors that are programmed for that. So they have a variety of tasks. And as I said, these dogs are trained on about 50 to 60 tasks. And these are some of the tasks that a service dog might be able to accomplish to assist the person that they're matched with. The next program is our Service Dogs for Hearing. These dogs are unique and a bit different than the service dogs for physical disabilities in that the dogs in that program are classically obedient. They're waiting for the command of the handler or the person that they're matched with. Hearing dogs are a bit different because they have to be at times purposefully disobedient. So if they hear a sound, they don't wait for a command from the person. They will run to that sound, run back to the person, and then run to the sound again, and the person should follow them to the sound. For instance, the smoke detector going off in the hallway. We hear from our clients all the time. Of course, when they're sleeping, they'll take their hearing aids out. But even during the day, when they have hearing aids in, many of our clients are missing sounds all the time, especially sounds from behind them, maybe a person calling their name. They don't even hear it. And that could be with their hearing aids in and functioning. They might not hear the phone ringing. Many of our hearing clients don't even use an alarm clock because they don't hear it. So the way the dog works is they sleep in the room with them. They'll jump up on the bed and give them a friendly lick or a kiss in the morning to wake them up when the alarm clock goes off, because they hear it and detect it for the person, and then will nudge them and indicate it's time to get up. So it can be incredibly beneficial, and our hearing clients especially, but all of our clients will tell them having the partnership with the dog and the dog indicating sounds really gives them their life back. It lessens some of the stress and anxiety of not hearing sounds or maybe worrying about what they're missing, and the dog is there as a partner for that. One last way the dog can indicate sound if they're not going to run to a sound, for instance, they're walking along and
Katy, I'm very sorry to interrupt. Could you please slow down your rate of speech?
Oh, sure.
Which
Yeah.
for our interpreters, they're having a little difficulty keeping up with you.
Sure, no problem. One of the ways the hearing dogs will indicate sound is by head movement. So if a car or an ambulance is going by the person and they're out walking on the street, the dog is going to turn their head and look at the sound and turn back and look at the person that they're matched with. And that indicates the person they're also missing a sound. So head movement is an important part of the dog and their assistance to the person. Next slide. Our next program specifically for our veterans is our Trauma Assistance Dog Program. This program is for veterans that are experiencing PTSD. It is different than the other two programs in that it's a local program within about a 3-hour driving distance. And this is for programmatic reasons and for the ongoing follow-up that happens before and after the person is matched and trained with their service dog. These dogs are the rock stars and the rock solid dogs of our program. They are unflappable. They're there really to be to assist the person they're matched with in all aspects of their life. Some of these ways might be to lessen their fear and anxiety of public places or loud noises. Those kinds of things don't bother these dogs. It also makes them the hardest dogs to train and to find. But they're there to help the person overcome some of the fears, some of the things that are brought on by their PTSD. Even though the PTSD is managed in some regard, they still experience times when it flares up and the dog is there for them. So some of the tasks the dog might be able to do, they could go into a dark room ahead of the person and be given the command to turn the lights on. They can turn the lights on so the person enters the room with lights on, and it lessens the anxiety that they might experience. Another way they might help the person is the person is seated and they give the command to visit, and the dog will come over, put their head on the lap of the person. The person starts petting the dog, their heart rate comes down. We do train them on some deep breathing techniques, and it just helps bring the temperature of a situation down that might otherwise be very anxious for the individual. A lot of our veterans experience sleep issues, and so the dog is there in the middle of the night, sleeps in the same room, and we'll get up and typically lay on the person to give them a little bit of deep pressure or just that feeling that someone is there to support them and assist them during times of maybe some dreams or flashbacks or just some trouble with their sleep. So these dogs are really the rock stars and unflappable. Again, right now, as that program is not open to new applicants, we are referring those clients to other organizations that have open PTSD programs for veterans. And the last thing I wanted to say before I hand it off to Katy is just that we look at all of our dogs as a bridge to the community, a way to help the person get back and re-engaged with the community, and they're not a barrier to the community. So all of our dogs do this in various ways. And we look at the dogs as just that partner for the person to get them back engaged with the community. And Katy will take over from here, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about some of our other programs and the benefits of our service dogs.
Great. And I'm sorry, I kept jumping the gun. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So the next program, and then we'll move really into the program for children's, is some of your children may be going to school where there is a NEADS dog in the classroom, or a NEADS dog that is at the hospital, or a NEADS dog that may be with a guidance counselor. So we have a program for dogs who can do all the task work, but really want to love the world. And we start to see that as they socialize with their puppy raisers and with their inmate handlers. And these dogs are perfect for really serving a large number of people. All of the other dogs that we've talked about serve one client, but our assistance dogs, when they're in the classroom or at a hospital or working in a victim advocacy program, are serving many. And that's a program that's been around for about 30 years. So I will go to the programs that I suspect are the ones that you are interested in this evening. And again, part of what we wanted to do tonight, and when I've had the opportunity to speak at other events for the Federation, is NEADS is one program, and we're very proud of what we do, but there are other programs accredited by Assistance Dogs International that will provide you with a well-trained service dog. There are organizations that will provide you with a puppy. They are not accredited organizations typically. And I think as you go through the process of thinking about what might help family members, to really think about, does a future program have elements that we've described tonight? Everybody does it a little differently, but the key ingredients are it's a dog, not a puppy, and it's a dog that has been trained in tasks specifically to mitigate the person with disabilities, their disabilities. So again, just to keep that as a lens. So we do have a program for children with physical disabilities. Initially, it's a program where the child and the parent work together. And then as the child matures, they can become the primary handler. That's a gradual process. We do have a program for children with autism or other developmental disabilities. Some of the questions that came in prior to tonight were around children with nonverbal or speech difficulties. And we do serve children who have speech and language issues along with autism. The program is designed, as you'll see from the task work, to build a child's confidence, to help a child regulate itself when there's change, or him or herself. I think working with a dog builds and teaches body language and sensory, and helps with sensory integration. This program is for children ages 8 to 16, and the parent, the child, and the dog are trained as a team, and that's key as we talk about this program. You might think about, as you're thinking about, well, I could have a family pet might help my child. What are the differences? So we wanted to spend a little time on that. So a service dog, as Katy showed, is task trained. That as she described each program, there are specific tasks that the dog does to help the person with a disability. And the same is true for a child with autism. And I'll go over those in another slide. The public access for a child is the team. There's the parent that's been trained, the child, and the dog. And that team has public access under the Americans with Disabilities Act. A family pet is welcome where pets are welcome, but it's not welcome. A family pet wouldn't be welcome to an event where pets are not welcome. So wherever the public is welcome, a service dog team may go. I think that one of the things to think about when you're evaluating a program is how long has the dog been trained? You know, dogs will be trained starting pretty early. And in our instance, we know that the dog has pretty much learned the task work by the time they're 12 to 14 months old. What we're looking for over the next period of time is for that dog to mature, and that we steadily see a consistency and a reliability in the task work. That if the dog needs to fetch something, it fetches it. If the dog needs to open up a fridge, it opens the fridge. That it's a consistently and reliably performing the tasks. For kids with autism or other developmental disabilities, the service dog can really be a teaching tool as the parent and the child work together on issues that may be difficult for the child. Some of the specific task work, this first is visit, which Katy talked about. We use this command with our veterans as well. The dog on command will go over and put its head on the child's lap, and the child can stroke the dog, pet the dog, and have that pressure as well as the stroking start to bring the child back into regulation. A nudge, the child may be frightened to go into a room where that's dark, the dog can turn on the light switch. My lap, a child could be sitting. If it's sitting in a seat, the dog can put its front paws onto the child's leg to apply more pressure than visit does. Or if the child's sitting on the floor, the dog will really go over the child's lap and stay there until the all-important command of off. Because as we all know, sometimes you're like, okay, I'm done, when you've had some experience of weight being put on you. Speak. This is a command that people find very useful. Our dogs only bark on command, which is really important, I think, for kids, because sometimes they're frightened by a dog, but the dog might bark. Our dogs are only going to bark on command. And kids like to use this to let their parent know that they could use some help. So it's a great command. Our dogs, because of their presence in the child's life, and this would be true for any well-certified program, it builds socialization. The service dog becomes a focal point for conversation. A child with speech issues, a child who has trouble looking people in the eye, all of those things that can be difficult for communication. It's much easier to say, oh, my dog was born on this date. My dog was trained by NEADS. My dog's name is. There's some ritualized answers that can help to build a conversation for a child with people in his or her life. The fine and gross motor skills. Our service dogs make eye contact. That's how they know that they're doing their job right. They look to the person to look at them, and that teaches the child that they can have eye contact. Our dogs need to be groomed. They need to be dressed in their work equipment. Again, ways to build responsibility and build fine motor skills. Caring for a dog can really help a child learn about what the dog needs. The dog needs its teeth brushed every day. Maybe I should brush my teeth as well. And life skills, we hear religiously from families that it builds communication skills with peers and family members. It helps settle things within the household so that everyone has a bit of an easier go of it. When do you think a service dog is right for your child? And these are, again, questions that we hope are helpful to you. First, our child likes dogs. Second, that a family has time to integrate a service dog into our life. This is very different from integrating a pet into your life. When you're out in public, your child's behavior can be managed enough so that in public, you can handle the dog as well as caring for your child. Our particular program, we do not do any tethering. So it's not a program for kids that might elope. There are programs on the Assistance Dogs International website where they do work with families who have trouble with a child eloping. Our particular program doesn't do that. You know, one of the things you have to look at is you're really committed to maintaining the training of the dog, the exercise of the dog. We ask for about 40 minutes a day. It can be broken up, but that's something you and the child need to commit to. And the working life and lifetime of a dog, you get the dog at about 2 years old, and we expect that dog to work for 8 to 10 years. And then, you know, their lifespan is 12, 14 years old. So it is a commitment. And as a dog ages, just like us, the medical expenses can increase just because they're getting older. One of the things for us, and this is true for other programs, especially in the age group we're talking about, your access in public is dependent upon you as the parent working with the child and the service dog. So your child and service dog are never alone in public. You as a member of the team are always together in public, and the team has access under the ADA. For us, we require that a dog not be alone for more than 4 hours a day. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about the training of the dog. Impact. So I love some of this. I'll go through this quickly, but we use this, a mom wrote to us about 2 weeks after her child had been matched with her dog. The changes we have happening are unreal. I was hopeful the dog would help. I didn't realize how much. Now my child goes to bed without a fight. No more screaming and delaying. Just, okay, Sam, let's go to bed. And the dog and the Sam will say, okay, Sally, it's time to go to bed. And the two go off to bed. The public access, this is a piece I particularly included because you are a team and you have public access. The dog can go to doctor's appointments, can go to the dentist. And in this particular case, the dog stood right next to the client. He could reach down and pat her and touch her and could get through the dentist visit, unlike any other dentist visit he had had. Homework is easier. Look at that smile, it tells it all. Everyone's brushing their teeth together. Again, if the dog needs to brush its teeth, maybe the child understands better about why to brush its teeth. The house is calm. We have seen our dogs do not go to school, but the behavior at home that starts to settle differently, where the child feels more regulated, we see often that same calmness, the same better regulation happens at school, even though the dog is not present. And as this mom wrote, she wonders at that point in her journey what else she'll see. But as she says, the cat, on the other hand, would like to return the dog. So we'll talk about that as well. So where do our dogs come from? Katy talked a little bit about this. Traditionally, they came from other organizations. Now our breeding program is the main source of dogs, though we work with other service dog organizations to build our breeding stock, because as you can imagine, you have to be very careful about the genetics. But how cute are those pups? Our dogs are black and yellow labs. From the beginning, we socialize them to be oriented to people. Our dogs are sociable, friendly, well-mannered. This is key. And that's why you need the time to see how they evolve and the training. They are able to work in all environments and recover from any stressful situation that occurs. That's absolutely a key piece to a well-trained service dog. Again, most of our dogs at this point, all of our dogs are purpose bred and they're black and yellow labs. Okay, you had to have puppies. There's some cute ones. That was on the cover of the Herald. You'll see in the middle a rendering of our breeding center, which will open in June. So we can start to show a real picture. It's an 11,000 square foot facility that is thankfully just a quarter mile down the road. I included this other cute picture of this beautiful windmill, if that's the right pinwheel. If you were to look at our yard where the pups play when they're old enough, it is filled with every kind of piece of playground equipment and equipment you can imagine. And again, it's to socialize them so that they see a swing, they see a pool, they see a pinwheel. It's all part of, oh, that's part of life, and the dog goes on. And it's a part of exposing them early on that all things are great. Our dogs are trained through our prison pup program, which has been in our in Massachusetts prisons and one in Rhode Island for over 20 years. You can imagine how this is a win-win. Inmate handlers are selected with a very critical eye to their appropriateness for the program. Our trainers go in once a week to train the inmate handlers. And you can imagine the inmates have the time to provide consistent training and care. And you can also imagine the impact on the inmates to have the ability to give back to the world in a way that they had never imagined. But we need to socialize the dogs. And also with our full-time breeding program, we need other ways for dogs to be raised while they grow. So we have a weekend puppy raiser program where the dogs are taken by volunteers each weekend so that they can socialize the dog to the outside world. We also have a full-time puppy raiser program where the dogs live with a raiser for 12 to 16 months, and their essential job is to socialize the dog and provide basic obedience training. And then the dog would move to prison or to NEADS for its final task training. And we have staff that works with the weekend puppy raisers. We have instructors that work with the full-time puppy raisers. Applications, when we open, which we hope to open this program in 2023, and I made a mistake in the earlier slide. We closed applications in February of 21. At this point in the pandemic, I lose track about when it started and when it was clear that we needed to honor those that we had already accepted. But in normal times, we review applications, we conduct extensive interviews, and in the interview, we're really looking to understand your family's needs, your child's needs, your lifestyle, the temperament of a dog that might work best for your family. While we're doing that, the trainers are gathering data, working with dogs, and looking to see what each dog's characteristics and personality are. The trainers are also specifically training dogs and the tasks needed for its future human partner. When we evaluate a family and a child and a client, do your needs match what the organization offers? We have specific programs and we don't work with persons with vision. We don't have a psychiatric program for civilians who need a psychiatric service dog. We look to see, can you get through training? Sometimes for persons with physical disabilities, they may not have the stamina to get through our training. And there are other organizations that could help them. When you get home, will you continue on the training that we've provided to you? Will you do the follow-ups that allows you to remain an ADI certified team? And can you provide for the physical and emotional care of the dog? In this instance, I want to pay attention to a couple of things. Our dogs are talked to nonstop by the trainers. That's how they know they're doing a good job. In addition, our dogs have been with people since birth on a 24-hour basis, essentially. So for families that are looking at a service dog from NEADS, because the dog doesn't go to school, we ask that the dog not be home alone for more than 4 hours at a time during the week, because then the dog gets distressed. It doesn't know a world in which people aren't around. So again, it's part of our responsibility to the dog and our responsibility to provide you with clarity about what our dogs need. Our campus-based training, depending on the program, is 7 to 10 business days. We have a gorgeous house on campus where people stay, and our trainers have to complete a 2-year apprenticeship before they can teach you as a new team. There's hands-on exercises with the dog, there's field trips, and there's educational classes. And again, our program is governed by the Assistance Dogs International, and they have set standards about what our training needs to look like. And then we ask our clients to maintain the standards of proper service dog task and training. We are there for the life of the dog after a client leaves campus. We do a pretty extensive follow-up for the first 6 months that a client leaves. We hold twice yearly graduations. Those have been virtual of late, except for one we did sneak in, but we're not going to hold an in-person one until next year. For our veterans with PTSD, we meet with them 6 times over the first year following their training. But no matter which program you are with, we provide support and guidance for the life of the partnership. And that's our contact information. So questions? How can we help?
Thank you, Katy, for this information. This has been very insightful because I've often had many questions about service dogs and actually considered one for my son at one time. You mentioned at the beginning of the presentation that the dogs essentially cost about $45,000 to raise, and families who would like one are asked to participate in raising about $8,000. So my question is twofold. One is, if a family doesn't have the capacity to do fundraising, are there other sources of funding for that? And for those who may have the capacity to fundraise, what kinds of tools do you provide for them to be able to do that?
So we, during the client interview, if we accept a client, then the next step is that they finish the interview with us, we'll develop their profile, and then they will meet with our supervisor of client fundraising. And clients that come to us, some never have to raise a dime, because never have to contribute their own money, because they work with Amanda about how to raise money through social media or through grants and foundations. So there's a variety of ways. Some people choose to provide NEADS with an $8,000 donation at the time of match. Others do a combination of their own donations as well as donations from the community at large. So we have a person who is fabulous and who's really well versed on how to help a person meet their goal. And our clients come from every kind of background possible. So we're confident that we will help them reach that goal.
Great, thank you. I think you mentioned this before. Your dogs don't have, your program does not have a program for dogs, for children or young adults who have psychological needs or emotional needs. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
That's strictly for veterans, but there are other organizations that have those kinds of service dogs.
Yeah.
So, okay, great. And this is a question I've often wondered about. If you have a child who either has a physical disability or may be autistic, but in either case does not have verbal speech, but uses a speech generating device, like an iPad or a Toby, can that young person actually have a service dog? Can a service dog respond to commands through a speech generating device?
So we have not as an organization, we have not had that experience. The closest we came is we were working with someone for an assistance dog program. I think we would evaluate that. Our general feeling is with a child, I'm not sure how I would respond for an adult. I'd have to see how it worked with the dog, is if the child can engage with the dog through touch, through play, through treating the dog, then that's enough for us to work with whatever speech issues there are. And we would be willing to look at how it might work with the speech. It's not something we've done. And so we would need to really work with the family, figure it out during the interview with the child, how that might work. Again, we want to do it so that the dog understands who the child is working with, that the dog is working with the child and the parents involved, but we want to keep that bond with the child pretty strong. So we're open to it. We just haven't had experience with it.
Okay. Now you've been thinking of children who may not actually have the ability to do touch or anything like that, but can communicate with their eyes, and that could actually produce speech from their device. So
Yeah.
I'd be really curious to learn whether or not that's possible.
Yeah, I think, we, one of the things that it's not necessarily the case for the audience we have tonight, but we do serve children from across the country, but we will not accept a child until we physically see them here, because we want to be sure that we feel confident that the child and the dog can develop a bond that will work. Because if that bond's not there, the work is not going to happen.
One parent was wondering if their daughter wasn't born here in the United States, is it possible for them to get a service dog?
I would think so. Yes.
So where you're born doesn't matter as much as where you are today.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Yep. Okay. And another family was wondering, they have a child with autism who has a significant speech delay, and they're wondering if the family already has a non-service dog in the household, would they still be able to access a service dog? Would that be something that would be allowed in their home?
I promised I'd say something about that, and I didn't. You are right. So we evaluate that, a dog, a cat, maybe two cats, but it's something that we really want to understand who the animal is, but we do allow it. What we can't do is if there are multiple dogs or multiple cats, because then it distracts the dog, or in the case of multiple dogs, it's a pack already. So it's something that we evaluate. We're okay with a dog in the house. We're okay with a cat in the house. It's just what the combinations might be, we want to be thoughtful about.
It makes perfect sense. If a family is interested in using your services, how do they start the process or interview to see if they would qualify for accessing one of your dogs?
So when we open, again, for applications, there's a pre-qualifying questionnaire on the application process that just sort of goes through who we serve and what we would expect from families. And then there's an application. We review those applications, and for clients that we think that we can serve, we would ask them to come in for an interview. I will say for kids, sometimes the kid is just thrilled in the presence of one of our demo dogs, and we are able to move forward. There are other times when, even if the child is good with their family dog, they come in and it's just not for them. And so we won't know that till the child's here.
Okay, great. And you've already noted that your dogs do not go to school with the children, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the thinking for us with that is that the parent's been trained as the facilitator, and the parent is providing the leadership to the dog. And the teacher's not trained. It's a lot for, in our view, not everybody thinks this way, but in our view, the teacher's got to teach, the child's got to figure out how to be in school, and just feels like it's just too much and ripe for not success. And so we have not done that.
Okay, great. Does anybody in the audience have covered just about all of the questions that are kind of relevant for needs? Does anybody else in the audience have any other questions? And if our interpreters can help us to identify if there's somebody who needs, who has a question, that would be helpful as well. Yes, if you have a question, if you could raise your hand and then turn on your mic, that would be grateful. Yes, Bridget, I'm glad that we recorded this as well, because this has been very, very helpful. Do either of you know of any organizations that have dogs that work with people with bipolar disorder or with other emotional disabilities?
So the website that Katie and I refer folks to would be the assistancedogsinternational.org website. And on that website, you can search for psychiatric service dog programs. There are some across the country. There's one in New Hampshire. It's a process. I think even when it's not COVID, people can expect that it's a couple of years. Oh, good. Thanks, Katie. It's a couple year process to be interviewed, to wait for the right dog match. But there are programs. And again, the term that you're looking for would be the psychiatric service dog program.
Okay. And Kelly was asking the question, why aren't service dogs allowed in public schools? There are service dogs that are allowed in public schools. They just don't happen to come from NEADS.
Well, they don't come from a child with autism. If a child is in a public school that has a physical disability and has the cognitive ability to be the leader for the dog, once they hit 15 or 16, the dog does go to school because it's performing tasks to help with a physical disability, but not for the program for children with autism.
Yeah, and there was another question that came up in preparation for this, which was around a person who had moved from one state to another, had a service dog for their child under a 504, and they seem to be having some difficulty with updating their 504 here in Massachusetts. And so, the question was, what could they do about that if they couldn't get their school district to do that? I think IEPs and 504s are based on the same thing, which is evaluation and medical and need, right? So if in fact your child needs your 504 updated, then you need the medical documentation to do that. And then you request a meeting with the 504 coordinator, which is part of general ed, not part of special ed. And if you're finding that despite requesting that meeting, that you're having difficulty with the district complying, then at that point you could reach out to either PRS or OCR to ask for some assistance and possibly file a complaint, because that at that point becomes a civil rights violation. So, but again, it's always based on need. You're going to need documentation that says that something in the plan requires change. But if it doesn't require change, your 504 is still active. It's active from one state to another. The dog doesn't just get to be active in one state. It's a federal law. All right, any other questions? The recommendations for nonverbal autism who comprehends auditory, I think this is a similar, there are young people that you in your autism program that might actually work for, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And if not, then of course, this website that you noted before, Assistance Dogs International, may be another source.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other?
Oh, hello, Mary.
All right. So if there aren't any more questions, one last chance. We have 3 minutes. We actually are finishing on time, which is, nothing short of a miracle.
Katie and I can do this presentation in 10 minutes and in 45 minutes and in 2 hours.
Especially if you let me talk faster, but I know interpreting's tough. So.
Yes, indeed. Well, thank you so much, both Katie's, for your time this evening, and I will send it back over to Pam.
Okay, thank you so much. And I know I really appreciated this opportunity to learn more about the NEADS program and more about the important role that service dogs play. So thank you so much. And I am glad that we have this recorded so that we can make it widely available. So as soon as the program ends or shortly thereafter, all of you will be receiving a link to a survey, an evaluation of the program. Please fill it out. We really use this information to think about ways of making our Connecting Families programs better. So we appreciate your feedback. And again, I would like to give, a really heartfelt thank you to both Katie's, to Beth, to our interpreters, and to all of you for joining us. So thank you very much. Have a good rest of the evening.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.